Hi, welcome to yet another exciting episode on Be Positive show on etbranddegree.com. I'm your host, Ambi Parameswaran. And today, this is really, truly exciting episode because we're going to have, I think for the first time, a guest who's going to join us all the way from London. So, hi, Mehul Kapadia is the CMO of Vodafone Business UK, an old colleague and a friend. And Mehul, a big thanks from all of us for joining us on this show.
Thank you so much, Ambi, for having me here.
So, Mehul, as you know, the show is about talking to high achieving CMOs to understand their career journey, where they started, what all they managed to overcome in order to achieve their level of success they achieved, and the importance of staying positive, importance of facing all the obstacles and coming out on top. And you had a absolutely stellar career after your engineering and then your MBA education. You were in advertising, then you moved into the Tata Internet company, then you moved with Tata Communications to London. You had a long innings with Tata Communications, and as you just told me, you spent a year with motorsports and then joined Vodafone UK just about 9 months ago. So it's been a fantastic journey, and I think we have a lot of viewers, young marketing professionals, as well as management students who come and watch the show to get their learnings from people I speak to. So I've been speaking to people across multiple domains: FMCG, financial services, IT services, and telecom. And you're a unique visitor because you're a unique guest, because it's the first time I'm having someone participating from London on this show. So it's really delight. Plus, of course, I've known you for a long time, and I've admired you from a distance on your achievements. So I'm doubly happy to have you here, Mehul. So as we start the show, before we get into your career, what I would like the viewers to learn a little bit about your school, college background. I know you did your engineering and MBA from Mumbai, but I think, were you born and brought up in Mumbai as well? Were your family from services, or were they from business? Can you tell us something about your schooling, early influences?
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Ambi, first off, for having me here. And thank you to Brand Equity as well. It's an absolute pleasure to speak to you, Ambi. And as we go through the conversation, the critical role that you played in my career, right? So we will talk about that as well. So I actually come from a family which was a business community, right? So my father's family used to be in a business community. He moved to Mumbai to actually do his chartered accountancy. So in some sense, so I've lived my life in Mumbai in that sense, right? When I was there. And extremely simple childhood, Ambi, right? A very simple childhood. He was setting up his practice, and I was always surrounded by a lot of those financial, legal books around me, right? And probably that was the reason I decided I'm not going to be a CA. So it was just too much of that around me. But a simple background, a lot of my time actually got spent on doing various things like science projects and participating in science fairs. Schools used to do that a lot at that point of time. And my uncle, my maternal uncle, he is an engineer, and he used to travel international a lot at the 1980s now. And I said, chalo, good, I need to do engineering. That way I'll travel the world.
So the idea of doing engineering was because you wanted to travel the world, and it's turned out to be true. It's pretty amazing, isn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it's.
So was schooling in Mumbai? Which part of Mumbai were you in?
Yeah, so in the suburbs in Andheri.
Okay.
So my school was there. Then I did my 11th and 12th again from Mithibai, which was like close by. So everything was like within that little perimeter, right, of where I lived. Then, interestingly, in 12th, I lost out admission in engineering in Mumbai, in the top 4 colleges in Mumbai by 1 mark, right? And my father was clear that do it from a good college. You want to do engineering, don't just do it from anywhere. So I don't have a very esteemed IIT, IIM pedigree to my education, right? I ended up going to Aurangabad, which is a city close to Mumbai, about 400 kilometers from Mumbai. But perhaps that was one of the best things to happen because it just opened me up as an individual, right? Here I was a kind of a quote unquote city boy, living always in the city, and moving into a place completely different. Uh, very and while the city was multicultural, this was multicultural in a very different way. That college, it had people from the army background, from services, from South India to North India, from Northeast India. So really got to learn a lot. Did things like standing up for students council election, right, which I think I would have never done if I
Did you
was
win?
just.
Did you win? Did you win your council election?
I ended up
Nice.
being the cultural secretary of the college.
Oh, nice, nice. So that means you must have been good at something, singing, dancing, whatever, right?
Nothing. Orchestrating was what I was good at. I was not good at singing, dancing, or sports.
Okay, so I think this is coming to us from many people we talk to is that the undergrad education, going and doing it in a residential institute, whether it is doesn't matter if it's IIT or not IIT, but just the hostel experience opens up your mind tremendously. So I think you're again confirming that, though you didn't go to a fancy quote unquote, I repeat, quote unquote, fancy engineering college. You went to Aurangabad, and the city is full of history, right? I mean, it's an amazingly interesting city to live in. Did you get to move around Aurangabad? Did you visit all the Ajanta, Ellora, and all that stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're spot on, right? What it gave is so Ajanta, Ellora, the forts out there, it is very historical in that sense. And one interesting thing about our college, Ambi, was that we actually had a uniform in engineering. So
Really?
yeah, and our uniform was blue jeans and white shirt, right?
Jeans.
And
I
whether it
mean,
was
this is
boys or
don't,
girls.
don't tell me don't tell me you're joking. The institute allowed you to wear blue jeans every day.
Yes. So our uniform was blue jeans and white shirt, right? And whether it was boys or girls, and it was a fabulous experience, Abhi. It basically, you can imagine people from all around the country, people from different economic backgrounds, people from uh, you know boys, girls, all kind of stuff, and we were all unified. It gave me a little bit of insight into why schools have uniforms, right? To bring that sense of equality, and it just opened up and made all of us actually probably engage with each other in a very different way because some were paid seats. If you remember that time of engineering, were expensive seats, and then government quota seats, and all those sorts of things. So very
Hey,
very unique experience in that sense.
very interesting that they insisted on jeans. As you know, in fact, at one time in the 1950s or 60s, jeans was seen as the dress worn by outlaws. So I think James Dean wore jeans in Rebel Without a Cause, and it became a big uproar in the US. And I'm told in some states, I think New York, they banned jeans in schools, right? In the
Oh, okay.
60s. Yeah, yeah, they banned jeans. So I'm actually delighted that, Aurangabad Engineering College was so open-minded about it. They said everyone should wear jeans to college. It's amazing. So you did what? Engineering in IT or telecom? What was it?
Yeah, so interestingly, in electronics and telecommunication, and never really thought that I'll do telecom in my life finally, but ECT sounded a very interesting course, so ended up doing that.
And you probably topped your class.
I know I didn't. I'm not one of those guys. I did well. I was decent, but never topping the class. I mean, I think I always liked a mix of experiences. So studied enough. Let me put it that way.
Okay, good. So did you work after engineering or did you straight come to do MBA?
So actually did straight MBA. A bunch of my friends actually started applying to go to the US. For various reasons, I didn't do that. I said, let me just straight get into MBA because while I really like engineering, I was not necessarily looking at a very technical, um, uh, career. I love technology and wanted that to be part of my career. Um, and hence got into MBA immediately after my engineering. That was in Mumbai, and then did my master's in marketing there.
So it was straight from engineering you came to do MBA, and I remember you were in Somaya, right? KJ Somaya, and I think you were in my class as well. So how was the KJ? Were you a hostelite in KJ Somaya, or were you a day scholar? You went back into coming.
Yeah, a day scholar. So I used to go back home because Andheri to that was quite convenient to
Yeah,
travel. So
yeah. So how was when you joined? Who was the director at Somaya? How was the experience?
amazing experience. So Professor Narasimhan, he was our director at that point of time. And he was bringing in so much new energy into the way the campus was operated. It was a small campus which was growing at that time, so we were like one of those batches which was allowed to do a lot, right? So we started our own magazine. So the institute didn't have a magazine of its own at that time. We started that. We went out to get advertising sales done on it as well, and things like that. So
And I think Professor Suresh Guy must have been there, right? And
yes,
yeah.
Professor Suresh Gai was there, Professor Venkatraman was there, Professor Monica. So,
Any favorite subjects? Any favorite professors, mentors you had who helped you kind of navigate through the MBA path?
Ambi, I'm going to embarrass you right now,
Please
right?
don't. Please,
Um,
no, no, no. Don't.
because it was you, and honestly, it was you because you were taking one of our courses, right? So you were my professor for one of the courses, and uh, you brought in a very different dynamic to what is marketing, right? Because you came, of course, from advertising at that point. You were leading FCB Ulka at that point of time. And the strategy orientation that you have, right? And hence the way you inducted us into marketing and advertising from a strategy lens, right? So it was not just about creative. It was not about will this win an award in Cannes and that should be your focus. It was always about business, right? What will it do to the brand to grow the business? And that genuinely shaped me up, right? And I mean it because actually
You're not doing it
when
because you're on my show.
no, not at all. Ambi. I'm going to admit one honest truth as well, right? Actually, my first job was with FCB Ulka, right? From campus, I got into FCB Ulka. And in the interview, I didn't even know the full form of FCB, right? So I actually had no background or enough background I didn't have on advertising. But I think you kind of did inspire me in that path. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you very much, yaar. I mean, there's nothing pleases a professor that someone says that they. So keep me aside. Any other subjects, influences in KJ Somaya which you want to talk about?
More than Cages Maya, I would talk about a sports personality
Hmm.
who shaped up a lot about me as well as an individual. So I'm a big motor racing, motorsports fan, right? Formula One fan, and you can probably see it behind me. There's a Ferrari car there as well. So Ayrton Senna, a three-time world champion, he used to be at the peak of racing when I was doing engineering. And unfortunately, actually, during that time itself, he passed away on the racetrack during a racing incident.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Uh, Phenomenal guy, right? Phenomenal. I mean, the way he always won against adversity, right? He came from Brazil and he made a mark for himself in a sport which was very European. Uh, in fact, Senna had a quote that he said, that actually when it is sunny, right, that's not when I like competing because then you can't overtake. But when it's raining, I know I can overtake 15 cars on the
Wow.
racetrack.
And it's very risky to
Uh,
overtake when it's raining, right?
yeah, and phenomenal. So I think that actually also shaped up a little bit because, as I said, I didn't necessarily come from what was very important at that time. What is still very important, what's your pedigree of institute and college and things like that. But it did help build a spirit of, you can make things happen, work on it. So
Very, very interesting. So we will get into that. I think that we'll get into the motorsport thing. So from KJ Sumaya, you joined FCB Ulka. Obviously, you must have got calls from other companies like IBM and TCS and whatever. So were you not a little worried that you're a IT, electronics, telecom engineer with an MBA? I remember you're a very good student. So joining FCB Ulka, was it a big risk decision? Did your parents say, why are you engineering करके सूचे advertising में क्यों जा रहे हो? All that was not there, and it must have been there, right?
there was actually a lot of apprehension, especially because I was never inclined to advertising. I'll be very honest. I didn't know enough, and that's why I didn't know the full form of FCB, as I admitted during my interview with you and Shashi. Uh, but what I did like, and that was my conversation with my family, right? That actually this could open up paths into doing things which probably, this is my early stage of my career, right? If I don't take a risk right now, when am I going to take it? Uh, and actually, what happened is that I think the work ethic that I got to learn in advertising really then probably vindicated that it was good to start off there, where you really put in a lot of effort, rather than maybe I could have taken a path which was TCS, and that's how I could have done my international travel. But this probably helped me take a different path.
You spent what, 2 years, 3 years with FCB, right?
2 years at FCB.
And then what? And then you went to Tata, right?
Yes, we had actually pitched for that account. So we pitched for the Tata Internet account. That time, Internet was just coming into the country, right? They were a private ISP in 2000. We pitched for it. We won the business, and fortunately, 6 months later, they invited me to join them, and it was a bittersweet thing, right? Because I was really enjoying my time in Ulka, learning a lot, but at the same time, it gave a fantastic opportunity to get into a new industry, do a product management role combined with brand. So it, in some sense, it actually helped me leverage my technology background as well.
So great. So Mehul, let me now pitch a little bit, say that a lot of people in MBA, I mean, you're a classical example that you took a risk by joining advertising and probably at a lower pay package than maybe what TCS or IBM would have offered you. But then you took those 2 years, you managed to learn a lot of new things and actually leapfrogged into a marketing role in one of the most or the most respected groups in the country with the Tata Group. So in Tata Internet, whom were you working with? Did you get to work with Srinath or was it with the other folks?
Yeah, with Srinath. Actually, when I joined, Madhavan used to be the CEO.
Yeah,
But
Madhavan
then
was there. Yeah.
yeah. But very quickly, actually, Srinath came in, and Srinath also became a big influence, right? In the way he, I mean, you know him very well, so amazing
But you should
guy.
tell people about Srinath because people don't know he's a very media shy guy. So you got the opportunity of working directly with what is called Narasimham Srinath. He's now the head of the Tata, he's the CEO of the Tata Trust. So how was it working with a guy like him? He's, just to bring it alive for the people here, he's big. I mean, he's big in the sense he's probably 90, 100 kilos. He's a huge guy, very, very strongly opinionated, has a point of view about everything. He's worked in Mr. Tata's office as one of his, executive assistants. Again, he's an engineer, MBA, all that stuff, and brilliant as hell. So how was it working with a guy like that?
Incredible, right? So, Ambi, 2 years working with you at Ulka, right?
That was
And
bad enough.
within
That
that,
was bad. That was bad enough.
it probably helped me prepare for the Srinath experience, right? Uh, Phenomenal guy. What energy! And you probably remember that was the time when actually there was a media report that had come in that he was one of the 6 people who could possibly take up Ratan Tata's role, right? So he was looked at as, because Ratan Tata was looking at a young person who might in future take up his role. And at that conversation at that time had started. And it was amazing to see that you're actually getting to work with a guy who'd for 7 years been R&T's executive assistant, done various strategic projects, rolled out various initiatives, and then setting up this massive internet business for the country, I would say, because I think that was important that private players came in and made that happen. Uh, and interestingly, what happened is I joined, and after some time, the head of marketing had left for other reasons. Vinod Giri, if you remember, he moved to alcohol company. So actually, I did get the opportunity to even work directly with Srinath, right? And it was so empowering that he would not care whether you are an assistant manager or a manager or a vice president or whatever. There was no hierarchy that he would look at. He would look at if you're doing a role, then you are empowered to deliver to that role, right? And he just created that environment of entrepreneurship. So here we were in the biggest group in the country, Tata Group, right? But Tata Internet, we were like absolutely entrepreneurial, right? So as a product manager, got involved in billing systems, got involved in, of course, the brand aspects of it, got involved in customer service, got involved in how will we roll out retail shops and hence sales, right? So we were a small team. So we actually got to do the 360 degree of a business. And Srinath created that culture and then his aggressive growth. So Tata Group, then in 2 years, we acquired VSNL, right? Which was like 20 times the size of what we were in that space. So I remember I was one of the first 10 guys from the group because Srinath moved there to be the CEO, I mean, the executive
Yeah,
director.
I remember meeting him in his VSNL office at Prabhadevi, right? That big building. Yeah. I
Yeah,
remember.
yeah.
The huge office he had.
Massive, massive, right? Looking at the sea and actually it was intimidating. Let me put it that way. Sometimes huge offices are intimidating.
So did you move to VSNL with him?
Yes. So he moved in February. I moved in May. So I got that brilliant opportunity to be part of that transformation. So a proper public sector company, and you can imagine 2002, right? Proper public sector company that it was, and transforming that into being a global company. So it was an India-centric company doing wholesale voice and internet, and we then did a massive global expansion. So Srinath led like acquiring across Asia, across Europe, across Canada. So it just started giving a lot of different experiences.
So then when did this UK move happen? Because I thought you were in Bombay and suddenly you were in UK. So was it a natural move that, Srinath wanted you to move, or Vinod Kumar had come, right?
Yeah. So Vinod had become the CEO by that time. So actually, I spent my initial years in Tata doing retail. So it was retail internet, then dabbled into the mobile services that we were launching, then moved into the SME space, so small and medium enterprise, and what can we do for them. And then actually, there was a point when I said, have I done enough now, right? And should I be looking at doing something else? And interestingly, we were expanding globally. So this was 2011. Tata wanted to expand globally. And so we decided to do a global sponsorship, right? So, I mean, we hadn't even sponsored a gully cricket tournament in India before that as Tata Communications, right? Uh, but we decided to go ahead and sponsor Formula One and also deliver services. So our partnership was not a badging exercise. You couldn't see our logo on the car or you couldn't see our logo at the racetrack. but we were delivering technology services to them. And so glad that the company gave me the opportunity to lead that as almost a business unit.
So was it?
So it was do the
Was this? No, hold it, yeah. Was
yeah.
this a motor sports thing something which was your dream come true? Did you lobby for it? Did you push for it, or was it something Srinath pushed for, or Mr. Vinod Kumar pushed for? How did it happen?
So interestingly, actually, that was getting done in our enterprise business, right? So I was still in our SME business, and which was very India centric. But this initiative was getting done in the enterprise business, and I have to really thank the organization for the trust. So Pratik Pashine, I'm sure you probably know him from Tata Teleservices days. He's now with Reliance. He said that okay, rather than leaving the organization, do something absolutely new, right? And Vinod had that trust, right? And he probably took the gamble in some sense to say that I've been in India, of course, traveled a bit international, but didn't have that experience to do a global sponsorship or a global service delivery kind of a thing. But I think they just gave that leap of faith, Ambi, right? Their risk-taking ability. I think I should thank their risk-taking ability. And then that's when in 2012 I moved to the UK to set that up. So kudos to Vinod and Pratik for taking that leap of faith. And there was a lady called Laurie Bowen who used to head up one of the functions who trusted me with that.
How was it? So we've talked to a few people who have gone through this move from India to Canada, India to UK, and they've all shared some very interesting stories. How was it? Going from a good Andheri boy, now transplanted to London to work in a very exciting business of telecom, and then your big client was Formula One racing. So how was it? What were the challenges you faced?
I think it's a very different experience, and honestly, very little that one would have done in the past in terms of actually knowing things would have prepared for it. But I think the ability to deal with ambiguity is what really helped. So I think if one is prepared, because everything was different, right? The market is different, of course, right? Their buying behaviors are different. The way they operate, the way they do business, right? Very different. People are different, right? And even though I was working with quote unquote an Indian company, which was a multinational, you're suddenly now dealing with an absolutely different set of people. Then you're also moving your family. So you're actually, it's like almost like all change, right? So,
Yeah.
in an all change situation, I think just the curiosity to learn was something that I think really helps. And I think for anybody who's looking at going international and wanting to establish that, having that curiosity, especially on the cultural side, are you willing to embrace the local culture and be part of that? Then it opens up everything, right? From your neighbors to your friends to your business colleagues to the way you operate.
So that's a very interesting thing you're saying, because a lot of Indians, when they move abroad, tend to stay within the clan. They tend to stay within the Guju community or the Mallu community or whatever, right? And it's very comfortable. It's very easy to get into that. But you're saying just the opposite. You're saying no, become multicultural, get to know friends from other part of the world, other countries, etc., etc. So did you make any faux pas? Did you come across any cultural shocks when you moved to London?
Lots of them, I mean, lots of them, right? Right from even simple things like pronunciation, right? See, we all know English, right? Because we grew up in India, so we know English. But even the way they pronounce things, like there is an area called Chiswick, but actually it's with a spelling which is with Wick. So I used to call it Chiswick enough times before somebody corrected me. So actually, that's a very simple example, but right from learning about how you speak the language, understand it, or the things that you do, right? So I embraced football. I was never big into football before that. right? I was big into Formula One and cricket, but never into football. But embracing that, because in UK, that is their culture, right? So uh, even things like that. And then the other thing is uh, some sort of, again, lifestyle changes that you do, right? Given the way I was never very adventurous when I was in India, right? Again, Mumbai city, so I never got into, do I go into the countryside and do things and things like that. But UK, again, different experience. So I think, and for my family, big changes as well. Uh, 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 so that was one. But I would also say that it's important to be comfortable in your own skin, and comfortable with, I don't have an accent is okay. It's
You
okay for
still
me to
don't. Yeah,
enjoy
you
my
still
chai.
don't. You don't. Still don't seem to have an accent.
Yeah, I don't. 10 years here and I haven't. My daughter does have one though, I must say.
But that's because she deals with children. So I think children pick up. They do that.
Yeah.
So thinking back, the 10 years you spent with Tata Communications, and uh, anything you remember which you did, which failed, and you managed to come out of it. Anything you did which succeeded, and you're very happy about it. Some things you can share with us.
Yeah, so I think one of our biggest challenges was that we didn't want to do this sponsorship as a sponsorship, right? So typically in brand advertising, and even now today, if you see, a lot of it is about, can I place my logo at the right place? Will it give me awareness? And then can I build story building from that? Our model was, we will deliver services. So it was all about do and tell, and hence build that we're not an Indian company. We can deliver services for you in any part of the world, right? So Formula One had races in Australia, Japan, Africa, not at Africa at that time, but the Middle East, South America, US, etc. And dealing with all those markets and working with people across that to make things happen. And believe me, the first year was difficult. We did have issues in delivery. We did have things that we had to completely relearn, right? Things that we were typically taking 30 days to do, we had to do in 3 days. Uh, and then also ensuring that, because you're making it into a media story, because we used to go and talk to press about it, right? So you couldn't go wrong. So actually, one of my biggest learnings was the CTO at Formula One saying, the contract signed, I don't want to look at it now, right? Now you have to just deliver.
So, which is
And
you were the IT backbone for Formula One. Was that it, right?
yes, yes. So we were providing them connectivity at the racetrack, and on back of it, then data from the cars, video streams. So if you were watching the race at home, the feed that would go globally used to come through them through us. And you actually got the real sense of whether you failed or succeeded, because 20 times a year on a Sunday, your appraisal was happening.
Yeah, it's amazing. Did you get to go to all the 20 races? Did you go to all the 20 tracks?
Not all 20. I went to about 15 of those. So there were some that there was no business need to go, but traveled a lot because of that. So
which means what? All the 20 tracks, the data connectivity is provided by Tata Communications.
yeah, that's what we used to do at that point of time. And I believe that continues now as well.
Wow. And that must have been really, every second counts, right? I mean, because in 1 second, someone can crash a car, someone can overtake, So it's mission critical during when the race is going on.
And there was a sense of pride as well in it. Maybe I'm speaking more at a personal level on this now, but there was an Economic Times article that actually came through, which was the Indian on the Formula One racetrack, which was about Tata Communications being on F1 at a global map. And it felt good, right? That actually we could go and deliver at a global level for a sport which is at the pinnacle of sporting action. And being part of that gave that little sense of pride, right? So
did Tata Communication manage to leverage this into many other such B2B businesses? That's a really showpiece account, right? I mean, Formula One is really a showpiece, mission critical. Just to bring the viewers into the picture, I attended a seminar once about benchmarking, and I think Mr. Lula was talking, and he spoke about how when I think one of the hotel chains wanted to understand how quickly can a room be made up, right? The guest checks out, and how quickly can the room get ready for the next guest. They actually went and studied how quickly the Formula One teams change the tires, right? They change 4 tires, and how long do they take, Mehul, for changing the 4 tires?
So the fastest Ambi has been sub 2 seconds.
Right? Can
So
you
less than
imagine?
two
Yeah,
seconds.
can you imagine? It's amazing, isn't it? You're changing 4 tires in less than 1, 2. Can you imagine? I said 1, 2. That's 2 seconds. In that 2 seconds, all 4 tires are changed. The car has moved, right? So they went and studied that to say, look, how quickly can we change, the change all the bedsheet of the room and get the room ready for the next guest, so that it doesn't mean that the former guest is checked out, we are getting the room cleaned up, and someone is waiting in the lobby. It's 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. So if they can change 4 tires in 2 seconds, 2 seconds, it's mind blowing. Yeah, 2 seconds, 1, 2, all the 4 tires. Wow. So I mean, when he said that, I was kind of blown away. And of course, you've seen enough of Formula One racing. I don't need to tell you, but for the viewers, apparently one of the most expensive piece of equipment in a Formula One car is the steering wheel, right? So Mehul, tell us what is there in the steering wheel. Tell us.
A lot of magic happens with the steering wheel, right? So actually, the amount of control that a driver exercises, and I think actually if we want to learn what human beings are capable with in a split second, that's a great way to realize. If you see the driver's hands on it, right from changing gears to changing settings to doing the settings of the car, a lot of it that we do in a stationary way is happening, to actually anticipating. So when they're taking a turn, they're actually looking at the next turn, right? Because this one they have already committed to, and the speed at which they are going, and hence the ability to handle the steering wheel that way, to giving themselves a quick drink of water, to actually then talking on the radio to their engineer who will tell them whether you need to come in for a pit stop or not. They're doing with that. And it's fabulous to see how machines and people, that combination comes to play. So, I mean, I could spend a long time talking about it, but I do believe that a lot of human inspiration can come from it. Because to your example of changing tires, there are 12 people who seamlessly are working together in 2 seconds to get that done, right? Without speaking.
Without speaking, yeah. In 2 seconds, what can you say? You can't say anything, right? In 2 seconds. Yeah. So it's amazing. And I was told even the throttle is on the steering wheel. Is that right? Or
yeah, everything. They completely operate from the steering wheel.
So there is no accelerator pedal, nothing.
So there is accelerator and that as well, but a lot of, because their entire gear changes and the way they stabilize the car is done from the steering wheel, that, as you rightly said, becomes like the most important. And they actually personalize it to each driver. Oh. So each driver has its own.
Wow. So that's, I mean, we can, like you said, we can go on about. So from Tata, you went into motorsports. So you said you spent a year with this company. How was that experience? Working in your dream company, so to speak, motorsports.
Yeah, so I left Tata and then joined a motorsport media company, a motorsport network. They are the global leaders in terms of motorsport content. So huge, about 60 million unique users, etc., into selling tickets at the racetrack, into esports, into producing games, and a lot of it. And we actually switched from marketing in some sense to be a COO there. So I was the chief operating officer for that company, smaller company in size. Joined in February, and COVID happened.
Yeah.
So all the expansion that I wanted to do, and the reason why I joined, the company there. But actually from March, the entire focus became how do you cut cost? How do you look at people safety, right? You have to look at safety of your employees across the world, people going to various racetracks. How do you change that entire thing? How do you switch operations? So it was a media company with operations running essentially from offices, and immediately building that muscle to work remotely. And cost was a big thing, right? You can imagine in small companies. So fantastic experience, right? Absolutely, I feel that's added another dimension to dealing with ambiguity that I perhaps probably referred to a lot. So worked for a year there, enjoyed my stint, did a lot, but the reality of COVID was that there were only so much of investments we could have done, et cetera, et cetera. And that's when I switched to this role with Vodafone, where I head up marketing globally for the multinational and large corporate business that we have. So Vodafone operates in various segments: consumer, SME, SOHO, and then MNC and large corporates. So I look after the MNC and large corporate marketing.
It's a bit like what you used to do at Tata Communications, right? You're dealing with big companies, you're providing uh, internet, IT solutions. So one has been hearing that with the COVID, the importance of technology, the importance of telecom has kind of gone through the roof. Now, are you seeing that globally as a trend?
Absolutely, Ambi. I think, see, digital transformation has been now a buzzword for a few years, right? And we all have seen that. But last year, being in the industry, we've seen change at a completely different scale, right? And I think it's fantastic because what in that sense, of course, COVID has been painful for all of us, and I'm just glad that we're all almost seeing the end of it in most parts of the world, and really pray for everybody out there. What it has done is it has really accelerated technology, right? And that change and the adoption, and I think that's a positive for us coming out of this, right? That everybody is doing it and at an incredible pace that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, remember, we are doing this, you're sitting in London. It is probably what, early afternoon for you in London. I'm sitting in Mumbai. It's almost 6 p.m. and we are doing this. And Zoom is not a new product. I mean, Zoom has been available for the last, I think, 7-8 years, and I've had board meetings where on a particular board where the Japanese and the Hong Kong participants used to join us on Zoom. So when I heard about Zoom about 7-8 years ago, I said, "What is Zoom?" I was told, no, it's like WebEx, but it's a lot more user friendly, etc., etc., etc. And I later discovered the guy who set up Zoom walked out of Cisco WebEx, and he set this up. So look at the way, I mean, it's dramatically changed adoption of technology, adoption of information technology, adoption of telecom technology. So it's a great learning. So now you're kind of your global role. Once again, you're starting to travel, or you're going easy on that?
Yeah, so currently no travel. We're not traveling at all. In fact, our offices have been all remote. So from next week, actually from coming Monday, we start going back to offices. But currently international travel. And again, I think we've just figured out that we can do all of this without traveling, right? But I do believe that at some stage, a mix of that will come back, because the people-to-people touch, the cultural aspect of understanding how work and businesses happen needs to come back. And I really hope part of it comes back for the younger generation, right? Because they need to get the opportunity to go out there and actually explore and not just be stuck behind a screen. So,
but I think what you're saying is that a lot of people used to believe that to do B2B deals, it's impossible unless you travel, right, and meet customers. Now I think because no one is traveling, right, you're able to do B2B deals without travel. But once travel opens up, I think if your competitor is going to go and do a face-to-face meeting with your customer, then customers are going to say, look, you guys are sitting and doing the Zoom meeting, whereas so and so came and met me last week. Then you'll have to end up traveling, though it may be a total waste of time to travel halfway around the world. And we've done that enough time. Halfway around the world, you travel for a 1-hour meeting, which is a complete waste of time. But then you have to do it because your competitor is doing it. So that may happen. So, so great. I mean, Mehul, it's been terrific to talk to you about your career and your interests in motorsports, which was a revelation to me. I didn't know that. Through your career, can you think of a few? All careers are made by people who have helped you, mentors, friends. So you spoke about, Srinath. Have there been other mentors you've had in the last 10 years whom you would like to tip your hat to, remember them and what you learned from them?
Yeah, no, absolutely, Ambi. I think the influence that people have, either they challenge you and hence you learn more, or they coach you and guide you and hence you learn more. And as it started off with you, absolutely the foundation of my career.
And let me also be clear, on behalf of all the teachers, probably, is that a teacher is only as good as a student, because every time you teach someone, you are actually learning something. And if you don't learn anything from your students, you're not a good teacher. So I think I was lucky that I've had some wonderful students right through. I've been kind of teaching on and off for more than 20 years now. So I'm lucky that, and I'm lucky that some of them, are coming to the show to talk to me. And I hope with you, we'll try and get a few more. So,
Yeah.
So anyone else you want to talk about? Yeah.
So I think a couple of people. So one is, of course, Vinod, who's shaped my career a lot as the CEO of Tata and that. The other person with whom I've learned a lot, I've dealt with him a bit because he's too big. So Bernie Ecclestone, right? The person who, in some sense, founded Formula One. He's now, of course, the
yeah. Who doesn't know Bernie Ecclestone? Yeah. Who doesn't know him?
I think the deal maker, the greatest of all time deal maker, the goat of deal making across the world is what you could say. And of course, we weren't that big in his scheme of things, etc. But learning from him the power of focus, right? He always used to have this focus, controversially at times, that actually I'm building the sport only to people who can afford a Rolex, right? He said it very controversially. But actually, his drive for it meant that it was commercially always at the pinnacle, right? So it made money, it provided entertainment, people became passionate. So got to learn a little bit engaging with him directly, but a lot from the distance as well, of how to actually look at your business and be very customer focused. See, we all talk about customer obsession, right? And that is what we need to be, especially as marketeers. But looking at that biggest deal maker and a business guy being so customer obsessed that my product quality, so the race will always start at a time.
Who was his customer? Who was the customer he was catering to?
So he was always catering to the petrol heads, right? And in today's day and age, petrol heads is not the right word, but we have to remember he started at 50, 60 years back, right? So it was a different time when he started. His thing was people who are passionate about cars, people who can afford to buy expensive stuff. I'm going to create an amazing sport for them. And at the same time, that will be so good that the world will want to watch it. So actually, if you see 500 million people watch it, so it's not meant only for the really rich folks, right? But so he had a very core, who's my core target audience, right? And who's then my secondary target audience.
Wow.
And
amazing.
Of course, he never used those words.
And do you think one day Formula One will transform itself into electric cars racing, or that's still too far in the past, in the future?
Yeah, so they have actually put a very big sustainability goal that by 2030, they want to be sustainable, fully sustainable, because one is the fuel in the car. Actually, interestingly, I mean, all the fuel that goes across all the racetracks while driving is equal to one jumbo jet journey from, say, London to Singapore, right? So actually, it's less about the fuel, but sustainability for the equipment that travels, fans who come in, etc. They've got big sustainability goals. They'll probably go more to biofuels rather than electric, because there's a separate electric racing series happening. So,
okay, great. So let me come to the last few questions and some inspiration. So I read that you're a boxing. You follow boxing. So who's your favorite boxer? Don't tell me Muhammad Ali.
Yeah. No, so honest truth, actually, boxing, I don't follow much as a sport, but I sit on the board of England Boxing here, which is the boxing governing body for England. And that is more about how can I actually take some of the knowledge that I have in the sports side and the business commercial side into something which is actually to help at a community level. Because it's amazing how boxing at a grassroots level is helping kids stay off doing things that they should not, is building a community spirit, uplifting folks. Because see, we all see the professional boxing side of it, the glamour side of it. But what we don't see is the actual grassroots. So boxing is more of a passion from a society standpoint, if I may say, rather than as a sport.
Great. I don't know whether you saw, there is a Tamil movie which is available on the OTT platform called Sarpatapa Parambarai. It's about the culture of boxing in northern Chennai uh,
Mhm.
30, 40 years ago. It's an amazing, amazing story about exactly the same thing. Keep kids off, bootlegging, drugs and all that, and get them into,
Yeah.
fighting. It's a fabulously made film called Sarpatapara. Who's your favorite Formula One team, yeah?
Yeah. Mercedes?
Okay. And your favorite driver, Formula One driver?
Ayrton Senna.
Ayrton Senna. Okay. And what about your favorite OTT series, movies, books?
Ah, loads. Actually, I've seen so much in the last 2 years, especially. But I would say a series called House MD. It's
It's
about
an old one, yeah. Mehul, that's an
yeah.
old one. Give us some new ones.
New ones. There is a Line of Duty which happened here in UK. That's quite good as
I'm
well.
waiting, I'm waiting for the latest season of Line of Duty, which is not available in India as yet. I heard
Yeah.
it's a fabulous series. I totally agree. Line of Duty is awesome. Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Any other OTT series which you are binge watching on?
Those a bunch of those, but Game of Thrones, of course, was again 2 years back.
Yeah.
But that was fabulous, right? Actually, that inspired me to travel to Croatia, where they filmed it, and it was great to see how they make it happen.
Oh yeah, nice. I think we went to Ireland and we visited one of those places where I think Winterfell or whatever, one of those forts. It's all broken up. So I said, look, what? They said, no. Everything else is all computer generated. This is where they shot it, and then all the walls, everything is computer generated. I said, they were shot it anyway. I said, no, they wanted this background, so they came and shot it here. So there's even a fake Iron Throne where I sat down and got a photograph taken. There's a fake iron. I mean, obviously it's made out of plastic, but it's the fake Iron Throne. So thank you, Mehul, for being on the show. It just time has gone on. And any last advice you'd like to give the viewers on how to build an exciting marketing career?
Just be curious, right? I think I would say just be curious, be willing to deal with ambiguity, and sometimes I think we do need to go with the flow as well, right? So
great. So thank you, Mehul. And just to wrap, viewers, as you listen to Mehul, his journey from doing schooling in Mumbai and then to engineering in Aurangabad, and then back to doing an MBA in Mumbai, and then taking a very risky path, joining advertising in spite of a BTech and an MBA degree, and then 2 years of advertising, and then on to joining one of or India's most respected business group, Tata, working with some amazing leaders like Narasimhan, Srinath, and Vinod, and Pratik Pashine, and then jumping at the opportunity going to London to work on a totally new domain, which is B2B technology, working with Formula One, and then fitting into that culture, understanding the culture, picking up the local habits, going for the football games, etc., and then of course now in Vodafone UK, running the global business to business part of Vodafone. So Mehul, once again, thank you very much for joining us from London, and wish you all the very, very best. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ambi. So nice to talk to you.
Yeah, so thank you, folks, for joining us. This is your host, Ambi Parameswaran, signing off on Be Positive Show on etbrandequity.com.